In it here now, I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna been on here now, who bid $500,000 bid.
Welcome to the Legacy of Agriculture. This program will explore the past, present, and future of agriculture. We'll look at the people, products, and events that have formed its history. And now, with today's guest, your host, Chris Bear.
Good morning, everybody. This is your host of the Legacy of Agriculture, Chris Bear. We appreciate you for joining us on WNAX Radio and also Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube. If you want to watch us live on YouTube, or not live, but watch our recorded show on YouTube, you can certainly join us there. Today, my guest is Andy Murnak from our Pfeiffer's Bowman facility. Andy, thank you for joining us today.
You bet, Chris. It's always a pleasure to be on Legacy of Ag.
Well, we appreciate you guys up there. You've the purpose or today's show is going to be simply about market results. We're getting lots of telephone calls about what's the machinery market doing, what's the land auctions doing. Every coffee shop that we talk to stop and people ask us those questions. Dealers are asking us questions about what the machinery market is doing in particular. Andy, I'm going to let you talk about the machinery and what's going on. You guys have had some phenomenal auctions up in North Dakota the last 30 days or so.
It has. It's been a wild and rampant March in April. You know, and it all got kicked off, and we started down in Sioux Falls with you guys at the Pfeiffer's Regional Office in Worthing, and that was in second week of March, and really started to get a good feel on what the equipment market was going to do here for the spring. And as always, you know, the spring sale that happened in Sioux Falls, and the spring sale that happened in Bowman, and then the spring sale that happened at our Pfeiffer's Auction Center, North America, in Steele, North Dakota. And what we've been seeing for some of our, you know, our consignment sales across the board really showed a lot of strength and a lot of optimism. And, you know, naturally, we always have that spring optimism, right?
Yes.
And so to watch that kind of trickle from the consignment sales, which were extremely strong this year, offering tremendous results, especially on you know, anything from 2012 to 2020 John Deere tractors or Case or International farm equipment. We were really seeing a lot of good, strong results and a lot of good optimism in the market across the board. Probably the most impressive sale was one of our last ones of April, and that was up by Voltaire, North Dakota, just southeast of Minot near the Velva country. And there were some records that were kind of broken in that I was waiting for Machinery Pete to come out with a couple of results that we achieved that day. But there was a 2012 John Deere 4830 sprayer that had 1,500 hours on it, I believe. Pretty much set up as nice as you can have. It was equipped with rear duals, full GPS auto steer, SF2 with swath control and auto boom height, everything. You know, I mean, it was locked and loaded, and always slept inside. Coming from a great home, and it was a full retirement sale, so you know, a lot of optimism coming out of a retirement sale like that, or a lot of confidence in the market, I guess. And that specific sprayer sold for 171,000, and Machinery Pete had it at least on in his results page that nothing prior to or nothing since November of 22 has sold higher than 140,000. And so to beat that number by 30,000 4 years later is pretty incredible. So right alongside in that same sale, the John Deere tractors, they were aged, you know, a lot of 1994, 96, 1979 4240 tractor that you and I talked about immediately after the sale. I mean, the strength in the market was just as good as we could expect. And again, coming from a fantastic home, that seller was probably able to capitalize as much on the ability to market his equipment a couple of weeks later after a sale that happened just down the street. So we did another retirement sale, 25 miles from his place. So we were able to kind of market both of them side by side, and they fed off of each other really, really well. In that specific sale, it was the David Sheely retirement sale at Drake, North Dakota. There was a really nice set of trucks and trailers that kind of kicked the sale off, and we were selling a 2014 Wilson grain trailer. That was a triple axe, and it brought 38,000, and it just kind of continued to go from there. So it was a really, really good sale. Peterbilt trucks, and then when we got into the nice John Deere equipment in that sale, we were really hitting some home runs, and it all started with the John Deere 9520R, and that was a 2019 model, brought 310,000. He had a 2019 John Deere R4038 sprayer, and that brought 285,000. Again, pretty much set up with everything coming from great home, and everybody had a lot of confidence in that market. And that specific sprayer had exact apply and metrics on it. So really, really nice sprayer. A lot of really good equipment in that sale. And all in all, basically across the board, we're starting to see that the market for the pre 2020, pre 2021, 22, yeah, probably want to call it anything that was manufactured or made prior to that or purchased prior to that, the market is still as strong as you could ever expect. It's hard to recoup the depreciation that producers are seeing on the 23, 24, 25 equipment. It's really hard to go buy a $800,000 tractor, use it for a couple hundred hours, and expect somebody to be in the market to buy that tractor at 600,000 or 650,000, which is probably where it should be, rather than the 450,000 that is actually being realized across the countryside.
In the 2025 market, Andy, if we were sitting across the table from a farm family and they were wanting to retire from uh, uh, wanted to retire from farming and had a beautiful line of machinery, what advice would you give them? Given, coming from 2024, we saw some pretty tough markets. What would you tell that family today?
I'd say right now there's probably as much spring optimism as we can carry. I anticipate 24 and 25 to kind of mirror each other. You know, we come in like a lion, and not I'm not going to say out like a lamb in the fall, but it's dang sure going to be a little more tepid unless we see a drastic change in the markets, the commodities, as well as what weather is impacting our region right now. There's areas that are extremely wet and still not getting into the field, and then there's areas like where I'm at in Western North Dakota where we're just praying for another rain shower. So you know, it's all over the board. We battle the same story each and every year, right, Chris? I mean,
Right. Yep.
for 40 years, we've always tried to second guess what the markets are going to do and what the weather's going to do. And in my experience, you don't want to try to second guess it. You don't want to try to anticipate what's going to happen or when the timing's going to be. Basically, select the time frame that works for you and your goals, try to manage the finances appropriately, work out a deal with your Piper's agent, hopefully work a deal out with your accountant, and try to figure out the best way to capitalize and capture as much of that income as you possibly can. And so there's different tax strategies that you can utilize. Obviously, we can walk you through those strategies. I don't want to get into it here. Everybody's individual, right? I mean,
Right.
it's
Yes,
got to
that's
be
correct.
customized to your specific needs, but we have the ability to walk you through this process hand in hand. And I had a family here this spring that said, well, our accountant said that we sold our cattle in January, and they don't want us to have an equipment sale till next year. Well, that's a fantastic theory on paper, right? It's a fantastic theory that we want to push our income off until the following year so we don't have to recover our depreciated taxes that we have kicked the can for the last 40 years, right? Number one, you're always going to have to recover those taxes. You're always going to have to do that. And number two, every day that you wait on equipment is a depreciable asset. That's why the taxes allow you to depreciate it. We didn't have to worry about that from 21 to 24 because it seemed like all this equipment was appreciating. But now that we're in a depreciable market again, we have to be cognizant that if you delay this another year, there could be swings in the market. There could be swings in interest rates. There could be, and there's guaranteed to be depreciation on that equipment. We could see a greater deduction in natural value of that item than we ever were worried about on recapturing taxes.
You're absolutely right. Hey, Andy, we're coming down to the end of our first segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. We're going to be right back with our second segment with Andy and more conversation about the machinery market.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Piper's Auction Realty and Land Management. Piper's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Hey, folks, we're back at the second segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. I'm your host, Chris Bear. I've got my friend and coworker, Andy Murnak, is about as knowledgeable about land and machinery markets as anybody is in the country. Thank you, Andy, for taking time. We finished up the first segment talking about taxes. And I want to carry that a little bit further. You were talking about depreciating assets versus in several years ago when machinery was going up in value. Let's continue down that road.
Yeah, you bet. There's all sorts of questions always out there, especially with families who are looking at the next either the next generation or looking at the next opportunity as to how they're going to transfer either their wealth or how they're going to capitalize on the current markets in retirement. So, there's tax strategies for land, which we're dealing with primarily, and how we're going to manage our capital gains, our long-term capital gains, and then there's tax strategies on how we're going to handle the equipment, which is scheduled under income tax and at a higher tax rate, and generally most farm and ranch operations generally have depreciated that equipment either through section 179 on a quick depreciation when they purchased it, or scheduled it out over time. So it's all based off a basis. So if your basis has been depreciated down to nothing, now we have to recapture that income tax. And it's that strategy where we start seeing a lot of the tax professionals, and I'm not a tax professional. I don't want to
We're
pretend
not
like I
giving
am here
tax
on the
advice,
radio.
are we?
I'm not giving tax advice, but I think the things to consider, at least in the comparison between the two, is whether or not you're going to lose more value, more long-term value, by holding that equipment until another tax year or another tax bracket, or do it immediately and capitalize on time value of money, because you're obviously going to be able to utilize that cash for an extra year. You're going to be able to make your investments for an extra year. You're going to be able to utilize those funds however you want to. You're going to be able to stop interest at your bank for another year. However your individual finances work, as opposed to waiting a year and waiting until the next tax year to hold a sale, where we could see greater depreciation on the equipment, greater depreciation in the market, unknown economic indicators or economic factors that could affect the value of your equipment between now and then. So back to your original question, was what's your advice? My advice generally is, let's find a time frame that works for you. Let's look at the equipment that's going to uh, be offered in that specific time of the year. Make sure that the timing is good for the specific items, and ultimately try to achieve your goals as an owner or as a farm and ranch operator. So it all comes down to whether or not your goals can be achieved, and in just about every scenario we can do that.
That's a great point, Andy, because as many times as you and I have sat across the kitchen table or sat across the desk from a client or a potential client, the conversation is always about the machinery markets, but that's not what it's always about. That's a portion of it, that's a fraction of it, but the other portion of it, or the other several portions of it, is what is it that you need to do in your operation to return back. We all got to pay taxes somewhere along the line, right? Death and taxes. But what is going to be the best for the seller? And that requires a tax advisor.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. And again, we're not tax advisors, but we certainly have connections with some really good ones. We have
Absolutely.
conversations with some really good ones on a daily basis, and obviously everybody has their own tax professional, and we don't want to encourage anybody to leave that person. We want to make sure that they're getting as much genuine information and knowledge that they possibly can.
Yep. And then the other portion of it is what's best for the family, what's best for the heirs, what's best for their retirement plan, and that's the other thing that really plays into the other aspect that plays into it. Andy, is what is best for the family.
Yep, without a doubt, without a doubt. Now, conversely, if we're going to talk about the tax strategies and implementations of some of the different positions that people want to take with land, land is a completely different animal. We're dealing with with a lower tax bracket. We're dealing with long term capital gains. In essence, if you're selling land generally, especially in eastern North or South Dakota, or in the eastern region through the Red River Valley or whatnot, you're going to cross those thresholds into the above 400,000 range generally, right? So it's going to
Yes.
put you into the higher positions of the tax brackets, and so you can kind of figure. again, I don't want to spit numbers out here and have some CPA listening to your show saying that's not right. So we kind of calculate
Andy,
between.
I'll give him your telephone number.
That'd be good. That'd be good. It starts at 605. The
That's right.
the the different avenues to look at there, you're looking at basically 18 to 22%. I mean, it's a pretty wide range, but it's a good way to, it's a graduated scale. You know, the first 80,000 is free, yada yada yada. It goes on up. Different ways to look at that scale, and I'd be glad to walk you through it. But again, visit with your tax professional on how that works. But the long term capital gains is a different animal, and it does allow for a lot of different options. So you can utilize a 1031, which we see a lot of people doing, and the 1031 is a great option again to continue kicking the can, right? It's not, you're not getting rid of your taxes. It's called deferred tax management. So it's a tax deferred tax exchange. And so section 1031 allows you to go purchase another property and replace that property through a process and through an expense that allows you to basically transfer your wealth from one asset to another. In a lot of scenarios, if you know, or if you're selling because you're in a retirement mode and you're wanting to travel the world or take your wife on vacation or whatever the case may be, well, maybe the 1031 is not for you. So we have to look at different options and maybe different investment strategies, and those options are out there as well. And the 1031 coupled with a 721 has the ability to invest into some real estate investment trusts or REITs that are across the countryside. That there's a lot of great options there that provide an annual return on investment. You can be a passive investor rather than an active investor. You don't have to manage that building or that tract of land by yourself. If you have a really good piece of farmland, it doesn't make sense for a lot of people to sell that piece and go buy another piece of farmland, right? You know,
That's correct. Yes.
you're selling probably a really good piece and trying to exchange it for something of lesser value. So those strategies don't always work for everybody. And again, like we said earlier, we can't just blanket the conversation across the board to everybody. Everybody has their own individual customizable plan, and we just have to meet those goals of the individual owners and potentially the individual investors who could be the same person.
The one big key to reinvesting money after you sell farmland is investing in something that you're comfortable with and have some knowledge about. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I would say 90% of the buyers that we deal with on a regular basis in 200 land auctions a year is 90% of those buyers are buying real estate or buying agricultural real estate because of the comfortability and the security in that investment, rather than giving $3 million to uh, John Deere or, you know, pick a stock. It doesn't really matter what the stock is, but rather than putting it in the stock market and then watching it crash, it used to be kind of a disaster when we saw the Dow Jones drop 300 or 400 points. Remember that?
Yes.
Dow Jones dropped
Yes.
300 or 400 points, and you'd be like, "What in the world happened today?" Now it drops 1,500 points in a day, and you're like, "Oh, well, I guess it must be Tuesday." So
Wednesday's coming, right?
yeah, exactly. And it can rebound and recover, and we're going to see lots of up and down swings. It becomes kind of a game of the hedge funds. And for those of us who are general investors, we're kind of on the sideline and at their mercy. So there's a lot of security in the investment of agricultural real estate. I know everybody says that it's got to go down. We're at the highest point it's ever been. It's got to go down. I'm here to tell you, Chris, it ain't got to do nothing. The market's going to continue to thrive. We've got a successful plan in place as far as American agriculture is concerned, and I think there's going to continue to be security in that investment. Now, emotion comes into play, and that's why you see the land across the fence from your house that you've driven by for a decade and always wanted to have. Well, now you got some emotional ties to it, and generally that does increase the value of it.
Well, not only the emotion of it, but the fact that there's a section or half section or even just a quarter that's been next to you that you vied for that 25 years, and it's contiguous, and it's your cost of production is significantly less because you're not pulling a planter 30 miles down the road to an odd piece that you've got to plant. So as always, that's value added. Hey, Andy, we're coming down to the end of our second segment. We're going to be back with our third segment. I'm Chris Berry, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. For all of the spring and summer auctions of 2025, you'll want to visit our website at pifers.com. That's PIFERS.com. Or you can simply give us a call right here in Sioux Falls, just south of Sioux Falls on I-29, 605-836-2277. Pifers, nobody does it better.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Pifers Auction Realty and Land Management. Pifers offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Hey folks, it's Chris Bear, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. We're in our third segment. Thank you for joining us. If you're not familiar with our program, you can find us on Apple and Spotify and now YouTube. You can also go to legacyofagriculture.com. You can get all of our past shows over almost the last 2 years right there on the Legacy of Agriculture. Hey, Andy, we had a great first and second segment talking about the equipment markets. But I want to dive into, at least in this third segment, the three different types of auctions that Pifers does.
Yeah. So as opposed to a lot of our competitors across the countryside, and we're starting to see a lot of companies. Number one, there's a lot of companies popping up that are strictly online only companies. That was their intent when they started the company. That's how they're going to continue to thrive, and that's the direction that they want to go, and that's fantastic. There's a really good market for it. Obviously, the technology is in place, and that's the direction a lot of vehicles are driving right now. The thing about Pifers and what I've always believed sets us apart, and again, you and Kevin Pifer and I have all sat down and talked about different strategies for different sales coming up. Every sale has a different strategy. And every sale, again, just like taxes, has different goals in mind for each individual owner. So we want to take all of those strategies and meld them into one pot and try to figure out the best avenue and the best angle of attack for different folks as we make decisions on what direction to go. But to your question, the three different methods that we utilize at Pifers Auctioneers is number one, and first and foremost, is the live auction. We still believe in the live momentum. We want to put the best ringmen in the seats or in the stands and help the buyers who are with their butts in the seats. We want to have them entertained as they walk into our facilities, either in Worthing or Bowman or Steele or Hillsboro or Fargo or whatever the case may be. When you walk into these facilities or walk onto a farm retirement auction that we're doing live, we want that momentum to carry. We want the butts in the seats. We want the people to be there shaking hands and communicating with each other and learning about what each other's operation and where they're at today. Obviously, everybody's always going to talk about weather and markets, right? Just we talked about earlier, and have that conversation with people and be involved with people. We're in a people business, and we want to continue to be around people. So the live auction method for us is still first and foremost our go-to method, whether it's land or equipment. And
the one thing that I do want to say about the live auctions, and I know we've had lots and lots of heated conversations about, and I'm very passionate about the live auction, is you wouldn't believe, Andy, the people here in Sioux Falls that walk through our front door, and I know you do too in Bowman.
Yeah.
They'll walk through the front door and say, we are so glad that we get to come and buy machinery and we can buy land on a live auction. We want to go to live auctions. We want to see who we're bidding against. We want to see who we're competing with in the theater type setting or outside. People love live auctions. That's never going to change.
No, and we obviously don't want to just do a live auction without the incorporation of technology. And what allows us in the live auction process to be even more explosive than just strictly an online only scenario is during that live process, we can welcome or we can invite the online bidding audience, but we don't have to use just one bidding platform. We don't have to just stick with our own developed bidding platform. We can open it up to multiple bidding platforms that brings millions of buyers into the equation. And in most scenarios, it brings buyers for absolutely every item at a competitive market.
So let's talk about those multiple platforms on the live and simulcast and why Pifers has decided to go down that road.
Well, I think we've been at the forefront of technology basically since the beginning of the auction industry entering into the online bidding. In 2009, we did our first simulcast auction, and I got the idea basically off of the fact that we were utilizing DV auction as a avenue for our bull sale, and it was bringing in bidders from outside outside of our general area for our livestock auctions, and just about everybody was doing it. You had Cattle USA, you had DV Auction, Superior Livestock, Northern, all these different companies were starting to incorporate the online bidders, and now we basically stepped into that in 2009, utilizing an old HughesNet satellite out in the middle of the Badlands back in 2009 to do that, and it really has just expanded and incorporated into what we're doing today. And so we can utilize multiple bidding platforms, Pifers.com, NextSlot, Equipment Facts, and the list continues. And we can continue to expand our audience, and really all we're trying to do is be marketeers of your equipment and your land. We want to allow the most people to enter that competitive atmosphere as possible, so we can achieve fair market value, and of course that Pifer's premium.
The one thing I want to say about the auction industry, to me, it's a little bit like fingers on the chalkboard. If I hear somebody say, "Well, we're just a marketing company, we're not an auction company," at Pifers, marketing is a very important component. It's a very important key. And that's why we do what we do with our marketing team. That's why we're doing what we're doing with the technology. That's why we've got our own bidding platforms. We've invited other platforms in. Is it's not just about the marketing, but it's about the performance. It's about the show. It's about what we're doing to make sure that our clients' equipment or land brings every nickel that it's worth and more. Would you agree with that, Andy?
Absolutely.
So, so let's talk. We got about 2 minutes left in this segment, Andy. Let's talk just a little bit about something that's new and exciting at Pifers that we're going to really work on perfecting, and that's the simulcast auction. Explain to us in the last little bit here what the simulcast auction is and what we're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, you bet. So now we're for years we've been doing a quarterly or bi-monthly online timed online only auction called the Upper Midwest Sale. And here just in 2025 we've transitioned this to be a live online sale. And so it's basically going to be run exactly like all of our live auctions are. It's going to be run exactly like our farm retirement sales are. We will have an auctioneer chanting over the microphone, basically a virtual auction. And whether we're in Sioux Falls or Steele or Bowman or Fargo, we can host these auctions and still incorporate the online only platform. You don't have to bring in your equipment to our sites. It's a sell in place style of an auction, but by doing it live allows us to incorporate multiple websites again to bring in multiple bidders. So instead of just being at Pifers.com or NextSlot, then now we can still incorporate second and third and fourth bidding platforms. So we can still bring it. I mean, again, our job is to bring as many buyers to the plate as we possibly can, and this allows us to do that. So we're going to hold these auctions virtual from here on out. And they're going to be live online sales. They're not online only. You can come to our facilities if you desire, especially if some of the equipment is on site and you want to come check it out. We invite you to do that. We'll post the locations of every item and allow you to do your homework ahead of time, or certainly call the agent that's listed as the representative of that particular item. We'll get you the answers.
Hey, folks, we're at the end of our third segment. We're going to be right back with our fourth segment after a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Pifers Auction Realty and Land Management. Pifers offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Folks, it's Chris Bear, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. I'm back with Andy Murnack, a good friend and team member out of the Bowman office, and we're talking about markets and the different types of auctions that Pifers has. And we, at the end of our third segment, Andy, we were talking about our simulcast or virtual auction that we're having now, June 6th through the June 6th, or excuse me, June 9th through the 16th. We've got our first official virtual auction. Tell us a little bit more about that, Andy.
Yeah, you bet. And we did it a couple times here already this spring as far as the follow-up days to our spring consignment sales in Bowman and Steel. But just like we talked about, we believe in the live simulcast online, or the live auctions with the simulcast bidding, which allows online buyers to come and join us. And instead of doing a timed online only auction for our quarterly consignment sales that we do throughout the countryside, where people don't have to actually transport their equipment, this allows that platform to bring in the live audience and the online audience as well into multiple platforms. And really the benefits are just exponential when we're comparing the live online auction or the live simulcast auction versus the timed online only sale, because we can incorporate so many different buyers in the equipment side.
So this sale that we're having, the nice thing about it is people can pool their equipment to any of our three, soon to be five locations, because we bought two more locations in North Dakota. But they can also leave their equipment right there at home or at their dealership or wherever it is that they want to sell that. That's a big advantage to these simulcast auctions, right?
Yes, absolutely, and still capitalize on the ability to utilize the live auction method, which we're still going to keep hammering home because we believe in that method so much.
Absolutely. So, Andy, when would you have an online only auction?
That's a good question. Now that we sit here and hammer on how great the live auction is, right? For me, it becomes really simple. It's a feel of the market and different strategies. So, you and I are working a sale together in northern South Dakota that we chose to do online only, and that's a land auction. And basically, what allows us to be successful in that scenario is it allows us to work individually with buyers through the timed online process. Now, this is not a matter of putting it up on a website and hoping people bid. This allows us to be direct in contact with who's registering to bid, weeks ahead of time, making sure that questions are able to be answered, making sure that we can communicate with our buyers, answer any questions, talk to the seller, confirm um, any different scenarios that we're running into with every specific tract of land. That's a 1,800-acre tract of land up in northern South Dakota near Lemon in Corson County, and so there's opportunity there to work with multiple buyers from across the country as they become interested in that particular property. Now, on the same side, we're working on a tremendous sale in Custer County, South Dakota. One of these extremely rare and specifically rare properties, to the fact that the entire thing borders the Custer State Park. Parcel number one has a direct view of Mount Rushmore, which it's got to be one of 20, private owned properties in America that has a direct view of Mount Rushmore. And the 840 acres that are being offered total, we're basically dealing with non-egg producers in general to be bidders at this. And your egg producers we deal with on a daily basis are, they're basically professional bidders. So in this scenario, it allows us to do multiple open houses. We can bring our computers down the week of the sale, the week that the bidding's going on. We can assist buyers. We can help them through the process, answer their questions. Again, it actually for me becomes more direct effort because we're going to be on site for 5 days. And
Yeah.
if you get outbid, Chris, and you're bidding on parcel one and the value just skyrockets past to where you're comfortable, now we can hop in a side by side and go look at parcels 2 and 3 and 5 and 7.
Yep.
So it just allows us to work directly with the buyers more one on one and really assist everybody through this process as they're trying to make life decisions.
So if I were retiring, I'm gonna kind of turn the tables just a little bit, Andy. If I was retiring, I'd been farming for 65 years, and I called Andy, or I called Chris Bear, or I called Kyle Waller, or any one of the great reps that we have in the organization. You could come in, and I've got this beautiful line of machinery. I've got some land. You could sit down, and I could tell you what my situation is, and you could tell me what would be best: a live auction with all of our platforms and our online. You could tell me whether a simulcast auction would be best in combining it with others, or you could tell me if an online auction would be best. Is that right?
Without a doubt. Yep, absolutely, and that's what we wanna do. That's the conversation we want to have, and we wanna be able to educate our clients. We wanna be able to educate everybody into the different scenarios and the different strategies and the different tax goals and everything that we can do to ensure that you're gonna be able to capitalize on the markets, you're gonna be capitalize on your assets, and get the greatest bang for your buck and the greatest return on your assets.
it to me, it's very comforting as a representative for Pifers and as a team member of Pifers to be able to sit down and be able to offer somebody the entire gamut, the entire pie, if you would. That it's not just online auctions, but we can give you live auctions, we can give you simulcast auctions, we can give you the online auctions, and not only that, but Pifers has heavily invested into brick and mortar. Um, Oftentimes, and we see so many times where an auction company or somebody who's marketing the equipment is operating out of the seat of our pickup, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've all operated out of the seat of our pickups. We wear out pickups, but to be able to bring your equipment to a facility like south of Sioux Falls or Bowman or Steele and have a building where they can do detailing, they can do cleanup, they can do all of the things necessary to capitalize on the market and to get every dollar out of that piece of equipment we can. That's huge. That's a huge investment, Andy.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And the hundreds of scenarios that I've dealt with, the hundreds of scenarios that my partners or my teammates have dealt with, if we don't have the answer within that minute because of past experience, we have somebody at our fingertips that will. And so, and nobody's going to try to work through a scenario that we're not comfortable with. We want to make sure that you guys are comfortable, that we have the answers for you. And if we don't have the answers, we know the professionals that do, and we're going to walk you through that process. Again, most of these scenarios aren't that complicated. Most scenarios come and it's, most sellers are a wide open book. They want to, this is what we have. This is what our goals are. This is what we want to achieve. And this is what we want to do in retirement. Or maybe post estate, right?
Yep.
And so all of these options are there. If everybody's crystal clear, the more you communicate with us, the easier it is for us to decipher what is the best method for you. Auction method, what the best timing of the year, what the best strategy is. And our entire goal is to not cost you a dime. Pifers, in essence, is 100% the company that we believe doesn't cost you anything to hire. In the long run, the strategies that we utilize and the methods that we implement, how we do it and what we do will put more money in your pocket than any of the other options that you have out in the marketplace. And we firmly believe that, and we've proven it time and time again.
Bottom line is we always want to pay our own way.
That's right.
Absolutely. So, Andy, we've got about 45 seconds less in this segment. Tell us quickly about the equipment auctions that's coming up over the next couple of weeks.
I think the most important one to talk about right now, Chris, is the one we've got coming up in Worthing, South Dakota. Pifers summer sale is fastly approaching. We're going to be down there. I'm actually going to come down there in 2 days. We're going to be there on Monday, and May 13th. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And then we're going to leave from there. We got a few rings to do that day. We're going to jump in the car and we're going to drive north up to Fargo and head over to the Butenhof sale on the Minnesota side and offer a really, really nice line of equipment there as well. So again, keep in mind, we got lots of good land auctions. The Custer County property is fantastic. You've got one in Nebraska coming up. That's incredible. We are basically covering from Denver to Minneapolis and from Lincoln all the way to Canada. So dozens of land and equipment auctions are always at your fingertips. You can get the full inventory, all the details. Everything's available at pifers.com.
Thank you for joining us, folks. We'll be back next week.
Here now, I'm gonna do now. I'm been on here now. Who bid $500,000 bid?
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Legacy of Agriculture with Chris Bear, sponsored by Pifers Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Call Pifers at 605-836-2277.